The echoes of battle still lingered in the air. Uruk, a city that had once trembled under the weight of its king's unchecked power, now bore witness to something unseen before: balance. Gilgamesh and Enkidu stood side by side, no longer enemies but brothers in arms. The clash that had shaken the very foundation of the city had forged between them a bond stronger than steel. Yet, the road ahead held far greater trials, and the true test of their bond had only just begun. Beyond the walls of Uruk, the Cedar Forest awaited. There was a time when the Cedar Forest had been a sanctuary of light, a sacred domain where the guardians once walked. Its golden canopy stretched toward the heavens, and its roots pulsed with cosmic wisdom, whispering the secrets of creation. That time was gone. Now, the once living trees groaned beneath the weight of an unseen rot. Their glow had faded, their life suffocated by the creeping tendrils of corruption. The whispers that once carried wisdom now carried only despair. At the heart of this decay stood Humbaba, the forest's ancient protector. Once a guardian like Ninsun, he had been the eternal watcher, charged with defending the forest's sanctity. But now, his form, a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal, was a monument to the horrors of the eroders. He had been a protector, a being of wisdom and strength. Now, he was rage incarnate. His light was extinguished, replaced by the darkness of Ereshkigal's corruption. From the high chamber of EP3, the sacred temple of the guardians, Ninsun watched through the glowing glyphs of the Enkai core. The Cedar Forest, once a beacon of harmony, was now unraveling, its sacred essence devoured by corruption. She had seen the devastation the eroders had wrought on worlds beyond Earth, and she knew that if this decay was not halted, the forest would not merely wither, it would become a weapon of war. Gilgamesh, sensing the weight of the moment, turned to Enkidu. The forest lies in ruin. Its guardian has been turned against it, Gilgamesh declared, gripping his axe. If we do not act, this corruption will spread beyond the trees to Uruk, to all the lands of men. This is more than a battle. This is a test of who we are. Enkidu, whose very essence was tied to the earth, felt the pain of the land deep within him. His voice was heavy with sorrow. I hear the cries of the forest, Gilgamesh. The trees weep as though their roots are chains, pulling them into the abyss. He turned his gaze toward the horizon. Humbaba was once a guardian like your mother. If there is even a fragment of him left, we must try to save him. Their fates were sealed. For the first time, Gilgamesh and Enkidu were not fighting for themselves. They were fighting for something greater. With the bond of brotherhood forged between them, Gilgamesh and Enkidu set forth on their first great trial, a journey beyond the walls of Uruk, into the heart of a land claimed by corruption. The road to the Cedar Forest was long, stretching across vast and ancient lands where echoes of the past whispered through the wind. Though the sun scorched the earth by day and the cold winds howled by night, it was not the harshness of the journey that burdened Gilgamesh. It was the dreams. Each night, as he closed his eyes, visions seized him, fragments of fate woven into his path, warnings sent from beyond the veil of time. In the first dream, he stood before a colossal shadow, a being of strength, sorrow, and rage. The ground trembled as it loomed over him, ready to strike. But before it could, a golden light pierced the darkness. Gilgamesh woke with a start. Enkidu, already awake, studied him. "What did you see, brother?" he asked. Gilgamesh exhaled, his voice quieter than usual. "A great shadow, a being of wrath and pain. It towered over me. Yet, before it could strike, a golden light appeared." Enkidu nodded. "The shadow you saw is Humbaba." His voice was filled with certainty. "The sorrow you felt may be what remains of the guardian he once was, and the light, that may be Shamash, the guardian of justice. Your mother sends you these visions, Gilgamesh, to prepare you. This fight will not be one of strength alone." But the dreams did not end there. On the second night, Gilgamesh's dream carried him deeper into the unknown. He found himself walking through the Cedar Forest, but it was not as legend described. The trees were rotting. Their once golden leaves withered and blackened, falling like ash upon the ground. A voice called out, a whisper, yet vast like the wind through the mountains. "Why have you come?" Gilgamesh turned and saw a single tree still standing tall, untouched by the decay, its leaves shimmering faintly with golden light. But as he stepped forward, shadowy tendrils coiled around its roots, pulling it downward into the abyss. The voice came again, this time from within him. "Do you seek to save what cannot be saved?" The ground crumbled beneath his feet, and he awoke with a jolt, the firelight flickering in his vision. Enkidu was watching him. "You saw the trees," Enkidu said softly, as if he had seen them too. Gilgamesh wiped the sweat from his brow. "I saw a single tree still standing amidst the decay, but it was being pulled into the darkness." Enkidu's gaze was distant, troubled. "That is the heart of the forest, the last memory of what was once sacred. If it falls, all will be lost." Gilgamesh's jaw tightened. "Then we will not let it fall." The third night brought something different. Gilgamesh dreamed of the sky, vast and endless, but filled with cracks of pulsing red light. Below him, the earth had shattered, floating as fragments in the void. And, in the distance, a great chain stretched across the sky, holding something bound. As he moved closer, he saw it was Humbaba, or what had once been him. His form was not monstrous, but as he once was, a guardian of light, bound and caged by biomechanical chains of eroder design. Gilgamesh reached forward, but the moment his fingers touched the chains, pain surged through his body. He looked down. The chains were wrapping around him now. Then a voice, low, cruel, and ancient. "The fate of the guardian is the fate of the king. Will you break the chain, or will you become part of it?" The pain grew unbearable, and Gilgamesh gasped awake, his hands clutching at his arms as if the chain had been real. Enkidu, who had been staring into the fire, spoke without looking at him. "You saw the chains, didn't you?" Gilgamesh took a breath, steadying himself. "I saw Humbaba, bound, like a beast caged for slaughter. The chains, they were not his alone." Enkidu met his gaze. "Because the eroders do not break kings, they turn them into weapons." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Gilgamesh stood. "Come," The forest is waiting. And so the journey continued, but the dreams did not cease. Each night, Gilgamesh saw visions of twisted roots consuming the land, of a forest choking on its own despair, and of a faint light struggling to pierce the darkness. The weight of their mission grew heavier. At last, they arrived. The Cedar Forest stood before them, but it was no longer the sacred land of legend. The air was thick, the ground humming with an unnatural vibration. The golden leaves, once radiant, were now tarnished and dull. The whispers of the trees carried not wisdom, but agony. Gilgamesh and Enkidu stepped forward. The earth beneath them seemed to writhe, as if alive, shifting under their feet. The shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting and pulsing as if they were breathing. A sound echoed through the trees, not wind, not whispers, a breath, slow, mechanical, long. The ground trembled. Something was waking up. From the depths of the forest, a form emerged. He was massive, a towering colossus of decayed flesh and merciless steel. His voice, once radiant, the embodiment of nature's might, had been transformed into a twisted abomination of guardian and eroder technology. His glowing red eyes burned with agony, with hatred, with despair. And then he spoke. "Who dares enter my domain?" Humbaba's voice was no longer a guardian's. It was something else, a fractured echo of what had been. "Do you come to witness the forest's death, or do you come to join it?" Gilgamesh stepped forward, his axe gleaming in the dim light. His voice was steady, but caution laced his words. "We come not to destroy, Humbaba, but to restore." His golden aura flickered as he spoke. "You were a guardian once, like my mother. Let us free you from this corruption." Humbaba's laughter rumbled through the trees, deep, bitter, filled with something almost broken. "Restore me?" His massive form shifted, biomechanical limbs twitching, pulsing with an unnatural glow. "The eroders have taken everything. There is nothing left to save." Enkidu stepped forward, voice steady. "Humbaba, you are not beyond saving. The Guardians fought for this world, and so do we. The forest still remembers your light. Let us help you find it." The moment hung in the air. Then Humbaba roared. His massive arms tore through the earth, his psionic energy erupting like a storm. The forest itself screamed as roots twisted into grotesque tendrils, surging towards them. The battle had begun. And above them, piercing through the corrupted canopy, a golden light descended. Shamash had seen. The guardian of justice had not abandoned them. His glow flickered against Humbaba's twisted form, a single thread of hope against the coming storm. In the heart of the Cedar Forest, destiny will be forged in battle, and the fate of its fallen guardian will be decided. Will Gilgamesh and Enkidu restore what was lost, or will they be consumed by the darkness that awaits? Join me in the next episode as we witness the epic battle between good and evil, where the will of the Guardians clashes with the corruption of the Eroders.